Unscripted. But sorry, Salman, I mean, there is an intellectual bias, and it has been going on for a very long time in the West. Chomsky, if you've listened to him at all, he makes that very clear. This has been going on since the Crusades.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And then in my lifetime, all I remember is Islam being demonized and being associated with terrorism, and this
even before 9/11. Some people are too young to.
Even before, when I was a young man, one thing I remember very vividly is the Iranian Revolution, right? And then Libya was always always in the news. In Palestine has always been in the news, right? And then you had the Afghan war. That was about the only time when the Russians invaded Afghanistan that the West
Mujahideen with the good guys.
That's right. They were referring to them as Mujahideen. Now they call them Taliban, right? Yeah. And terrorists.
Even Rambo fought with them.
Rambo fought with them. That's right. Yeah. So this has been going on for decades, to be honest. And there is a clear bias, and that whole sort of association with Islam and terrorism has skewed public debate and the narrative. And that's what we're fighting against here. But in our campaign here, anyway, look, I experienced Trojan horse a couple of years ago, and I was very dismayed that there was a lot of injustice done to the community there in Birmingham. But I was dismayed.
Later proven to be a hoax.
Yes, it was. They were completely false allegations, and in fact, I knew at the time they were false allegations. And to some extent, that is why, I was not really concerned about it, because I knew I just considered them as false newspaper headlines. But what I was dismayed about in particular, actually, was that when I campaigned at the school gate, this was quite late in the issue. When I campaigned at the school gate, I found parents saying. Parents feeling that they didn't belong to this country, that they didn't have rights here, that they were a pariah in their community in Birmingham, and they would say things like, this is a Christian country, we have to do what they say, which is directly against British law. When public schools first started around the Second World War. The Education Act 1944 says very clearly that pupils are to be educated in accordance with their parents' wishes, right? Yeah. And this is enshrined in British law and in primary legislation.
That's an important distinction to make, because you're being spun as the people trying to argue against something happening, whereas you're arguing for the rights you already have. To be recognised.
That's right. This head teacher at Anderton Park School, Sarah Hewitt Clarkson, she was interviewed yesterday, I think on Monday, right, by a gay reporter, and she's telling the reporter that, look, these parents, they can't dictate to us what we teach with such hubris and arrogance. But what she's happy to do is to dictate to us what she will teach our children. Well, she can't trump parental rights over their children's education, and that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
And she she's doing it with such contempt for the community.